Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to introduce for our first segment, Teaching in a COVID Environment, Keith Potter, the Director of Color Guard for Center Grove High School in Indiana. Also on this segment will be Andy Toth from our steering committee, who will interview Keith and give you some insight into how he's dealing with this difficult time and how he's making it work for Center Grove High School. Andy?
Hi, everyone. Hey, Keith, thanks so much for meeting with us today. You and I had a conversation maybe a week or two ago. We were just gathering some information to see what people are doing, and I thought that there were some particularly insightful practices that you were doing when transitioning from outside into virtual, and just wondering like when that shift happened and how you got that process started.
Yeah, I mean, that shift happened. Well, first of all, hello. um, that shift happened when, when we closed down in mid-March, and then, we kind of just were in limbo for a while, and we thought, well, we've got to start back up so we can have auditions, and that's really when it started. Like at the end of May, middle of May, trying to ramp up to this marching band season that has since completely changed what we thought it was going to be. So we actually started the process, the audition process and the rehearsal process right after that virtually. We didn't see anybody live until mid-July. So we did our normal springtime all virtual. And, there were certainly challenges. I think the first and most important thing was to talk as a staff, think a little bit on my own and then talk to a very capable staff and talk with and gather ideas about the goals. Because I think making it goal-based helped us decide what we could and should do, and not base it on what we had ever done, because there wasn't going to be an effective way, and we didn't know when that was going to open up to us again. So it was kind of like, well, what do we want to achieve in this time, and how are we going to go about it? And some of the things we found were like, some things like learning how to read a drill chart was really easy to do. It was actually easier to do with screens and people on virtual screens, for example. So that's how we got started. Before I ramble on, I'll pass it back to you to kind of see, what else you want to discuss.
Yeah, no, that's great. That was one of the main things that we talked about, is like what things can you get accomplished beforehand, like reading the drill charts or establishing, some sort of goal setting, like what you said, hey, this is what we're going to be doing, this is what we're expecting from you. What kind of attendance did you have? Like, were the students like gung-ho about it, or were they a little bit reserved?
Well, and I'm sure this is different for every program. We have kind of a small group, and we graduated 5 people from our winter guard, which is essentially our fall guard. It's kind of all one thing, for the most part. So the people that were already in the World Guard last year were super excited to do anything to get back to it. And the challenge really was to create community for the new people coming in. They had never met these people. They really didn't know what exactly they were getting into. Some had been in our A Guard, our middle school to high school. We had 2 JV programs. And some people were totally just like, they saw color guard as an option through pamphlets or through whatever. In the middle school, they were never ever involved, and then came in, and that was the biggest challenge, was like trying to get somebody that had never seen this or done this or been part of it to get excited and to kind of get into the culture of what had been established before. And that was stuff that we could talk about virtually. We watched videos of old shows. We talked about kind of the accountability, like once you sign up for this, these are the tasks that are required. And we could talk about making sure that we had good attendance. And that was part of, if you wanted to do this, the first and most important thing is showing up every time we have a scheduled meeting. And that weeded some people out. We definitely lost some people in that process, but what we ended up with in the end were some really dedicated people that we could kind of learn that dedication during a time where it was really easy to tell if somebody was going to be self-motivated. and take the initiative to show up and to do the things. And so there was a lot of discussion about just being there, in the very beginning. Just if we can see that you really are going to commit to this and you're going to be there, that told us a lot, and that helped us kind of build what I think now is a really strong, committed group of people as we've come through it.
Yeah, I know that the culture is super important to what you do, and not only with the students, but within the staff. And I know that you've got a great staff with lots of talent there. How did you utilize them, like for the virtual learning? Did you have multiple people going at the same time, or was it just you?
Yeah, so we talked about trying to take a little bit smaller bites because we wanted to make sure we could create as much clarity as possible. Again, not going back to what we had done and business as usual, but like, what are the bare necessities that when this thing turns back on, we will have trained a group to be ready to start to take steps into performance. So we did a lot where we would video. We would video ourselves. I videoed myself doing choreography. They videoed technique exercises, and the videos would go out before we would have the teaching session. So they would have already seen, and for the older kids, they could kind of take themselves through it. For the newer kids, it gave them an introduction. And then when we got on to our rehearsals, they were able to reference those videos. They were able to talk through the videos, and they were able to share their video while they were talking. So they always didn't have to be teaching away from the camera, and they were able to pay a little bit more attention to the output coming back from the students. And then on top of that, after the rehearsal, so it went video of information, rehearsal to talk through the information, and then the kids post back within the next 3 or 4 days their demonstration of the skills. So and that went on to like a platform. Different schools have different platforms. Ours is called Canvas, and it's basically like an e-learning platform where we can post videos and then reply to those videos, and they can post videos and they can reply to videos, and it's a really good tool. And you could certainly use a Facebook private page or any kind of other way to share that information. But the combination of video output, then teaching, and then video input really helped us assess, and it helped the students digest in smaller bites.
Yeah, that's super smart to utilize the time wisely during the screen time, because there could be that screen fatigue. So showing them what's about to happen before you even get on the call, that's a great use of time. What are there any other tools that you use? Do you get feedback from, like, do you have student leaders or anything like that will kind of let you know what's going on the other side, so to speak?
We do, and we have, when I think lots of people have these now, a star chart situation. So they also have to, as part of the process through the summer when we're not together, because then we took a bunch of weeks off, like where we didn't do anything, but they still had the responsibility of posting the summer agenda, the summer assignments of like this many spins and this cone exercise and these tosses and these kinds of catches, and and so the students kind of manage that, like the leadership manages the making sure that everyone is doing it, that they're turning in their assignments, and we still, of course, as a staff have to follow up on that, but the student leadership kind of helps. They have little guard families that although they couldn't really get together this year, they got together virtually to make sure that if any of the new kids had questions, or if somebody just needed a little bit more motivation by working with somebody, they were working virtually also. Mm-hmm. And I do think they were certainly not scheduled or sanctioned, but I do think some of the kids got together distanced with masks on and tried to help each other. But it was certainly a different situation than normal.
Yeah, no, that's smart. And that's the situation where you have multiple people involved. Did you come across any issues with virtual learning, and when you're just doing, do you feel like it's better to have more people involved, or do you have them all together? Do you keep them all together in one group, or do you put them in different breakout rooms, or how does all of that work with the staff?
So we would dance together. We would have a dance class that would be everybody, and then we would go into sectionals for our our break. We would go into breakout rooms for sectionals, and then further than that, we did a few where we broke into older weapons, newer weapons. So the one other positive I think about the virtual setting is the ability through video and through breakout rooms and that kind of thing. We could really graduate what people were working on. We had, if you had been in the Guard for already, this is your 4th or 5th year going into the Guard, they were able to work on some things that somebody that's going to spin weapon for the first time weren't working on, and we could run those things simultaneously. Now, obviously, we had a lot of staff. I mean, most of the time, the teaching that I was doing was watching everything and playing air traffic controller. Like if somebody gets kicked out of a call, like getting them back in would be very hard to do if you're by yourself, because you'll be teaching and paying attention. So there is a little bit of I would suggest, if it's possible, to have a little bit of a technology director that's kind of like keep making sure everything is running. That was helpful in having a larger staff. But even when we didn't have, or we couldn't have everybody involved, you can kind of do that too with using some of the older members to demonstrate, so that you can stay engaged in watching. Because I think the hardest scenario, and the thing that I tried to avoid, was trying to manage the technology and do all the teaching and do all of the watching to make sure there was some comprehension. So definitely, if you can team up or use some of your older members, if you're by yourself, I think that is useful, to kind of not try to do everything, because it's hard enough to assess what's happening through a screen, depending on how far away they have to be, to not, hit their iPad with their flag or whatever. So there's a distance that happens that it really does help if somebody is managing managing the whole process. That's not necessarily giving all the information, and that's where the video ahead of time helped, because you could also then just pop that video on and reference that to use as the demonstration.
So, it sounds like this is very thorough. Is this something that you think you would want to use in the future, even if things return in some way?
I think probably. I think there's something. I mean, I'll have to assess when it's all said and done, but I think there's probably some things that that were helpful. I mean, definitely the choreographic process of learning choreography and being able to show it from different angles. And it's not like videoing flag work is new. I mean, we've been doing that forever. But in some ways, it freed me up to be able to talk and watch instead of standing up there trying to teach live with my back to everybody. And so I think there were some positives that came from this that I might continue to use, especially like learning how to read the drill charts. That's always something that for new people is like, side 1, side 2, front, back, front hash, back, like all that stuff that I could just actually put the pieware up and show exactly what was happening. And they all had their own screen to watch instead of like, looking at a projector across. So there were some things that I think we probably would keep.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Well, thank you so much for this insight. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will find this super useful with their own groups. And yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today, Keith.
Yeah, sure. And if anybody needs any other information about what we did, I mean, I'm happy to share. And again, I have a lot of this information has come from a number of people on the staff, their input. And so it's not just like one person. There's like 4 or 5 of us that were kind of working together to make this, to kind of figure this out as we went. And so, I think we did, through trial and error, find some things that might be helpful. So if anybody wants to reach out, feel free. You probably get a hold of Andy through steering committee information, and he can get you my information.
Yeah, of course. My email address is a.toth@wgi.org.